Does God really hate gays? All over the internet, you have the Fred Phelpses of the world telling us that God hates fags and railing against homosexuality, and that seems to be, unfortunately, the pervasive voice in Christianity. And so we want to go out and talk to people about this subject, about this issue, and find out, does God really hate gays? Do you think homosexuality is consistent with Christianity?
Consistent with Christianity? I guess there's a lot of debate personally. I think so. I think that the Bible shouldn't be translated literally word for word, and that I think the main message of Christianity is love. And I think love is the most important aspect of this issue, just loving people for who they are and accepting them, especially because they're human and they have a lot to give as well, and they're no different than anyone else. So I think it's important to remember that.
My gay friend told me that there's 1 out of every 7 or 6 people is homosexual. That means there's a lot of homosexuals in the church. I think they should get as many opportunities to lead as they do follow.
I was raised in a church where values around gender roles in the church were very conservative, and values around sexuality were very conservative, and vocally so. And so when I was about 11 or 12, 7th or 8th grade, and I realized that I was attracted to men, that was the point at which I had to do something about it. And so I started working with a couple of different pastors in kind of a counseling format. We worked under the school of thought that homosexuality happens because of a lack of male companionship.
I don't think that he really hates gays. He hates the sin. He doesn't hate the people themselves. And the churches that say that God does hate fags, I don't know where they're coming from personally, but I think a lot of churches could do a lot better job accepting them and bringing them to Christ.
And so that kind of natural yearning for male friends and a lack thereof manifests itself, perverts itself, eroticizes itself into homosexuality. And so the solution then is to make more male friends. And that's what I did. And that was the goal. And I lived it. And those friends that I made through high school are still my best friends.
We're naturally just open sexual creatures, and I guess religion just thinks it's wrong because of procreation, and a lot of religions say that you should have a lot of kids. You don't necessarily, now we've gotten to that point where there doesn't need to be any more kids, to tell you the truth. We're kind of overpopulating our planet.
I think that gay marriages should be illegal, but that it's okay to be a homosexual and that they should be accepted by the church. And I'm happy that I am not, but I am not a homophobe, and I don't have anything against any gay people. And I think that there's good gay people in the world who probably want to make the world a better place, and they should be happy and have good lives and be accepted by the church. It's basically the way I feel.
Are you a Christian, Dan?
Yeah,
Do you think that homosexuality is consistent with Christianity and the teachings of Christ?
I don't know. I just don't know for sure.
So how do you see that relating to Christianity?
Christianity? Well, they say that sex is only between a boy and a girl, and that men should only be girls, and that anal sex is wrong. Yet there's a prostate gland in the male's body, which is an equivalent to a G-spot. So how could that necessarily be wrong? And now there might be proof that it's genetic on why you're gay. So, hey, if it's genetic on why you're gay and you don't have any choice, then you're lying to yourself and not being yourself by trying to be straight.
Values are not likely to change. Things that may have happened during my formative years, whether that is the root. What is the word? Whether that's where my own sexuality was birthed, things that happened during those years, those are over. And if something hasn't changed by now, if I've been trying for 8 or 9 years and it hasn't changed, then it's not going to change. So the best thing that I can do is embrace it.
Do you think Jesus would have been down with homosexuality?
If he was as loving as everyone says that he was, then I do.
As a Christian, do you think homosexuality is consistent with Christianity?
As a Christian, I do not think it's consistent with Christianity, and I feel that there's room for change. There's room for change, and that's my whole take on that. I don't feel like it's consistent. I feel that it's pretty much, it could be a way of life. It could not be. I couldn't really say, but I feel that it is room for change.
I don't think that in general they've handled it very well. I think their views are pretty archaic, and I think they need to start accepting that homosexuality is becoming a part of mainstream culture, and they should conform to that instead of conforming to their beliefs that were written several hundred years ago.
I feel like it's something you are born with. It's something that you can't change about yourself. Just like you can't change your eye color or your hair color. So I feel like the church could be more accepting. I have seen some churches around town that support, like they have the little rainbow flag on their signs or their doors, and I just think that's great. I just wish more people would be accepting of everybody, even if they are a little bit different for who they love or who they marry. So.
The Christian community is a lot more divided than I thought it was. And when I say divided, I mean, I think a lot of us believe that the majority of Christians agree with the pundits on TV. That even if they're not as extreme as Fred Phelps, they still say, you know what, Dr. Dobson is right. And we believe that because those people are in the media and they are the voice of Christianity in the media, that's probably what everybody's believing. And what I've learned through bringing up really risky conversations with people that I really respected was that there's a lot of people out there who say, you know what, I just don't know. I don't believe one way or another strongly enough to say I agree with this perspective, or I am willing to speak out and disagree with the more conservative perspective. I just don't know, and I'm stuck in this middle place.
We're going to be discussing at our next Theology Pub the issue of does God really hate gays, the biblical position on homosexuality. And it's unfortunate, I think, in the church because on one hand you have what seems to be the real publicized voice, the Fred Phelpses of the world who are out there saying God hates gays and railing against it. And then on the other side you have the liberal fringe of Christianity that just wants to accept everybody and love everybody, and why don't we all just get along and sing Kumbaya together? And yet, where's the balance? Because in the Scripture, I think clearly we see that homosexuality is a deviation, a distortion of God's created goodness. It falls short of His intention for sex. And so we need to speak candidly and openly about the subject without being rude and offensive, without coming across as though we don't love people. I think Jesus would have hit this issue head on. He would have done it in love, as Paul says, to speak the truth in love. And that's what we want to do. There's got to be a balance between railing on it in hate and accepting it as though there's nothing wrong with it at all. There's got to be a balance there where we can show people that yes, this is morally offensive. This is a deviation from God's best. But we can do that in love, and we can do that in a gospel-centered way, showing that Jesus died for that sin as well, and that there is hope beyond that lifestyle.